Family loyalty is being tested like never before, and by the end of this episode you will be asking yourself one question: can Portia really save Mawethu from the storm that Lazarus and the Zondo family are cooking up around him? Welcome back, Inimba family, because today's episode is loaded with betrayal, heartbreak, pregnancy drama, and a graduation party that nobody saw coming. Grab your tea, get comfortable, because we are unpacking everything that happened, scene by scene, so stick around until the end. We open this episode with tension already thick in the Zondo household. Lazarus is once again showing that ruthless side of him, the side that makes viewers shake their heads every single week. He is coming for Mawethu with everything he has, and honestly, watching him operate, you start to understand why so many people in this show fear crossing him. Mawethu does not deserve the treatment he is getting, especially not from someone who claims to be family. Wandel finds himself caught in the middle of this conversation, and you can tell just from his body language that something is troubling him deeply. He knows more than he is letting on, and that silence is going to cost him later in the episode. What makes this so painful to watch is that Lazarus already told Mawethu that everything would come out eventually, that documents would be signed, that people would finally understand what has been happening behind closed doors at Zondo Enterprises. That kind of warning is never just a throwaway line in this show. Every single time a character drops a hint like that, we know it is coming back around 2 or 3 episodes later with consequences nobody expected. So keep that one in your back pocket, because we are definitely not done hearing about those documents. From there we shift into one of the more emotional threads of the episode, which is the ongoing question of who exactly is feeding information outside of the company. There is a mole somewhere close to the family, and the accusations are flying in every direction. Mawethu is being pushed to the front of that conversation again, and it genuinely feels unfair, because so far nothing concrete has tied him to any wrongdoing. Lazarus, on the other hand, seems almost too comfortable pointing fingers, which tells you exactly where the storyline is heading. When someone is that eager to redirect suspicion, it usually means they have something to hide themselves. Meanwhile, we get a beautiful but complicated moment between Wandel and his girlfriend. Their relationship has always had an undercurrent of difficulty, but this episode brings it right to the surface. She finds herself stuck between loyalty to Wandel and loyalty to her own family, and that tug of war is not an easy one. There is a really telling exchange where she reflects on the pressure of being seen as selfish just because she is trying to protect her own future. It is a fair point, honestly. Women in this show are so often painted as the difficult ones the moment they choose themselves, and this episode does a good job of holding up a mirror to that double standard, even if it does not say so directly. Now let's talk about the pregnancy storyline, because this is where the episode really pulls at the heartstrings. Zethu and Zolani are back at the doctor's office, and this time the big question on the table is whether they want to find out the gender of the baby. If you have been following this couple's journey, you know how much they have been through to get to this point, so watching them sit there deciding something so simple yet so significant feels like a real milestone for them. Zethu is clearly torn. Part of her wants to know right away, and part of her wants to hold on to the mystery a little longer. Zolani, ever the calm one in the relationship, tells her to take her time and not to rush the decision just because everyone around them is curious. There is a small but touching moment where Zethu jokes about how she already has a feeling about the baby's gender, and Zolani teases her right back, telling her to relax and let the process unfold naturally. It is a nice breather in an otherwise heavy episode, and it reminds us why this couple has become such a fan favorite. Their chemistry does not feel forced, it feels lived in, and that is part of why so many of you in the comments keep asking for more scenes between them. But of course, Inimba never lets us stay in a peaceful moment for too long, because right after this we are pulled back into the tension at the tech company. It becomes clear just how deep Lazarus's influence has grown inside the business, and honestly, it is unsettling to watch how comfortable he has become making unilateral decisions. He is not asking for permission anymore, he is simply informing people of what has already been decided, and that shift in power is something the other characters need to wake up to before it is too late. Mr. Zondo himself seems to be feeling the weight of this, though he still carries himself with that same quiet dignity he always has, even as the walls seem to be closing in around him and his son. This episode also spends some real time on the theme of sacrifice, particularly around career versus family. One of the storylines touches on a woman being pushed to consider compromising her career path for the sake of keeping peace at home, and it raises an uncomfortable but necessary conversation about the expectations placed on women in these family dynamics. It is handled with more nuance than you might expect from a soapie, and it left me thinking about how often these characters are forced into impossible choices just to keep the family unit from falling apart. Now, let's get into the moment a lot of you have probably been waiting for, because this episode finally addresses the fallout from Wandel's actions. It turns out that his own girlfriend had information tying him to selling company secrets to Lazarus, and the way this revelation unfolds is honestly one of the most gut-wrenching parts of the entire episode. Zolika is not thrilled about the idea of Wandel coming back into the business at all, and once this new information comes to light, you understand exactly why her instincts have been telling her something is wrong. Wandel wants back in, he wants to prove himself, but the shadow of his betrayal is going to follow him no matter how hard he tries to outrun it. What makes Lazarus such a compelling villain in this arc is that he does not seem to actually want reconciliation or peace. He wants control. He finds a strange kind of satisfaction in watching Zondo squirm, in knowing that he holds pieces of information that could unravel everything the family has built. There is a chilling moment where you can practically feel him enjoying the discomfort he is causing, and it is a stark reminder that not every conflict in this show gets resolved with an apology and a hug. Some of these characters are playing a long game, and Lazarus is clearly one of them. Switching gears now, we move into the emotional heart of the episode, which centers around the graduation celebration. This is where Inimba really shows its range, because the tone shifts from corporate scheming to something much more personal and much more tender. The family decides to throw a huge celebration in honor of the graduation, and it is clear from the moment planning starts that this event means something deeper than just marking an academic achievement. There is a lingering grief in the air, tied to a loved one who is no longer physically present but whose memory shapes everything the family does. One of the younger characters, thinking with the innocence and good intentions of youth, decides to do something sentimental as a gesture to honor that missing family member during the party. It comes from such a good place, a desire to make sure everyone in the room feels like their loved one is somehow still included in the moment, but as anyone who has watched a family navigate grief knows, good intentions do not always land the way we hope they will. The gesture ends up bringing emotions to the surface that some family members were not prepared to confront in public, and it leads to a beautifully written, if heartbreaking, unraveling. It especially affects one of the mother figures in the show, who has been carrying grief around her son's memory in a way that she has tried to keep composed and private. She insists, almost too firmly, that she is strong enough to attend the graduation, that she does not have a problem being there, but you can see the cracks forming underneath that composed exterior. She starts speaking to a photograph of her son as though he is right there with her, imagining him collecting his own achievements alongside the family, and it is one of those scenes that really test the emotional range of the actress playing her. It is heavy, it is real, and it is a reminder of why grief storylines in Inimba tend to hit so much harder than in other shows, because they do not rush the healing process, they let it sit uncomfortably in the room the way real grief actually does. There is a lot of concern from other family members about her mental health in this moment, and rather than dismissing it, the show treats it with a surprising amount of care. Instead of turning her pain into a spectacle, we see other characters, including someone who previously had a complicated relationship with her, start to feel genuine compassion for what she is going through. It humanizes a character who has, at times, been difficult to fully sympathize with, and it opens the door for potential healing between her and the rest of the family in upcoming episodes. The debate over whether the graduation party should even happen becomes its own emotional battleground. Some family members feel that celebrating right now, while grief is still so present, feels wrong, almost like betraying the memory of the person they lost. Others argue that life has to continue, that celebrating milestones is exactly the kind of thing their loved one would have wanted for them, and that refusing to celebrate does not honor his memory, it just prolongs everyone's pain. Watching these two perspectives clash is genuinely moving, because neither side is wrong. Grief does not come with an instruction manual, and Inimba does a great job showing just how differently people process the same loss. Meanwhile, there is more brewing under the surface regarding family control and old wounds around parenting decisions. There is a particularly tense confrontation where one of the father figures asserts his authority in the household in a way that feels less like leadership and more like control, and it raises questions about how healthy that dynamic really is for the people living under his roof. Some viewers in the comments last week were already picking up on this pattern, and this episode gives us even more reason to keep an eye on how that storyline develops, especially as it intersects with the ongoing tension between the two families connected through marriage. Back on the corporate side, Wandel makes another move, this time reaching out and trying to get closer to someone connected to a rival business interest, and it feels like he is playing a dangerous game of trying to prove his loyalty to two sides at once. It is hard to tell at this point whether he genuinely believes he can pull this off without consequences, or whether deep down he knows this is going to blow up in his face. Either way, the tension between him and Zondo is escalating, and the fact that his own inner circle is starting to turn on him only makes his position more precarious. By the time we reach the final act of the episode, the emotional weight of everything, the corporate betrayal, the pregnancy reveal decision, the grief around the graduation, and the mounting suspicion around who the real mole is, all comes together into a genuinely gripping hour of television. It is the kind of episode that reminds you why Inimba has built such a loyal following, because it does not rely on shock value alone, it lets its characters sit in real, complicated emotions and lets the consequences of their choices actually matter going forward. So here is the big question going into next week. Can Portia actually step in and help Mawethu clear his name before Lazarus manages to turn the entire family against him? Based on how confident Lazarus is acting, and how much information he clearly still has up his sleeve, I would not expect a quick resolution here. My prediction is that things get worse before they get better, and that at least one more character's secret is going to come out before the truth about the real mole is finally revealed. I also think we have not seen the last of the emotional fallout from that graduation party, especially with grief still sitting so close to the surface for that family. Let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen next. Do you believe Mawethu is innocent, or is there more to his story that we have not seen yet? Do you think Wandel can redeem himself after this betrayal, or has he burned that bridge for good? And how do you feel about the way the show is handling grief around the graduation storyline? Drop your predictions below, like this video if you enjoyed the recap, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on all the drama happening in Inimba. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next recap.